Right. Welcome to my new podcast show. Welcome to the Helen Back podcast show, I should say, where each month I'm going to be speaking to an inspiring and amazing individual who has been to Helen Back and then some. A person who's faced challenges that the worst life could throw at them, overcome those challenges, and then gone on to do something amazing with their life. Before I go into and introduce my first guests on my new show, I'd like to talk a little bit about who I am and what I do. My name's Marc Singer. I'm a mindset coach and a keynote speaker. And I too have been to hell and back and then some. I was incarcerated for something I hadn't done and given a prison sentence and told I'd never be released from that sentence, during which time I tragically lost all of my family whilst incarcerated. I secured release and then went on to become a professional coach who now works with individuals and people and groups and businesses to help them transform the way they see things, their mindset, and help them create the lives that they desire. So without further ado, I'm going to go straight into the show and welcome my first ever guest on the podcast show to Helen Back and Then Some, the amazing Rae Saleem. Welcome, Rae, to my first ever show. It's my pleasure to have you on to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Marc. It's a real big honor and a privilege. And certainly after listening to your story and having that chat with yourself earlier on as well, I'm really honored and privileged to be in such a position to be your first podcast. So thank you so much.
I'm honored to have you on there. I mean, just so people know, we first touched base, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. And we had a brief conversation then. And I must admit, you know, I've heard some stories in my time, but your story blew me away. And I was really inspired, totally inspired by it. And I just was so excited to have you onto this show. And so I'm really, really excited to get into it and talk about it, because I know that once we talk about this and go into it, it's going to be so helpful to so many different people. And especially at a time like now when so many people are going through difficulties in their lives, things like this help people. They help people see things through a different lens and create what they want, despite the circumstances that might be restricting them in life. So firstly, before we go into the story as such, I'd like to delve a bit back into your past and ask you about who you were, who you are, where you're from, and all of that sort of stuff. So if you could tell us a little bit more about that, that'd be great.
Sure. No, thanks. Thanks for the opportunity once again. So yeah, I am a second generation Asian here. Father came over in the 60s, got married, and originally from Sri Lanka. I came over and was growing up in London. We moved to Luton. Father had a new job there, and I was just a regular child growing up. I think my mum and dad both had to work very hard for their living, multiple jobs, just to provide us a living, me and my sister. And yeah, we grew up in a very simple life, and that was pretty much thankfully a textbook life as well. Although my parents were working, as I said, multiple jobs, we felt very loved and very natured at home. It just went on from there. I gone down the conventional sort of Asian route, I guess, of completing all of my studies. That was the priority. That was the number one thing. The getting through the A-levels, degrees, and all the rest of it, getting into a corporate job, and getting married. I've now got a beautiful wife and 3 beautiful kids, 3 boys, and yeah, life was going pretty smoothly. If you're looking at it from the outside, everything seemed to be ticking along, and I was just in a kind of cruise control. But underneath the surface, there were a lot of cracks, and I could see for my own personal self that all was not well. I think more so from a health point of view, which then affected a lot of me from a mindset point of view as well.
Okay, that's interesting, because often we can see someone from the outside and make an assumption that their life is great or going well and perfect, and that's common, I would imagine. But often there is things underneath the surface that we don't see, that can affect us in many different ways. And That can often get ignored by ourselves, by society, by the people around us, and it can often be difficult to also, deal with those, open up to those. So what sort of things were going on underneath the surface that were troubling you?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. The idea of putting things away, covering up certain items. So I was generally quite a chubby kid. I think the kids will, family and all the rest will see that from the start. I was my weight, my health was very difficult to keep under control. I think the best I could do was a training for my wedding, where I managed to do a 5K just in the run up to that wedding, and that was a long bit of training, which I thought was the fittest I'd ever been. But I was still quite big at the time. But I could see pretty much as soon as I got married and then had the kids that I just went back. From a health point of view, I regressed quite heavily, back to eating, back to playing second fiddle pretty much. I was putting my family, my wife, I felt very, what do you call it? I felt awkward to do things for myself. My role as a father, as a husband, felt more that I should be serving and doing things for others, and anything that I did for myself, you secretly felt guilty for, because you think you should first of all serve your kids and your family. And I think that was a detrimental thing for myself in the long run. I could see my weight gaining. I kind of I ballooned to 18 plus stone. I was 120 kilograms, and working, that affected me in so many different ways, and ways that I didn't even acknowledge initially. It's only now when I look back, I can see, from your mindset point of view, how things really planned out, from a discipline point of view, from an administration point of view, from an organization of my life point of view. A lot of things slipped, and there was a lot of denial, and there's a lot of overlooking until things kind of hit you in the face. And these kind of areas really did come up and hit me. My father, unfortunately, he passed away. Well, he developed heart issues from a relatively early age, late 50s and stuff. He was having heart attacks, and he was diabetic. He was having high blood pressure and all the rest of it. And I could certainly see myself going down this route, not at that age, but now even in my 30s and 40s. I was borderline diabetic then, and high blood pressure, obese. And yeah, it was a lot of denial for myself, though. I kept on blaming other things, blaming circumstances, and just putting it off. And it was getting to a pretty bad stage.
I think that's a normal thing as well. I mean, a lot of the time, in life, we focus on the external issues that are around us, and we tell ourselves that's the reason why I can't move forward. That's why I can't do this or that. And it restrains us mentally and emotionally. And so that we've got an excuse, we've got a reason not to do something, or not to be who we want to be. And if we do find ourselves thinking that way, before long, we lose track of who we really want to be and who we are inside. And, we fall into a way of thinking which restricts us, even though it's, we tell ourselves it's not that, it's something else. It's the COVID or poverty or the world or whatever it may be. And I think we're going to come to this in a minute. Your story highlights this perfectly, really, about in terms of what restricts us and what doesn't restrict us. So, I'd like to go into, where you were just prior to what happened to you, and in terms of your mindset and what were you doing. I know that you've said to me before that you're very conscious of your weight. You talked about you wanted to lose weight before the wedding, and you focus on the wedding and losing the weight. But after the wedding, you went back to how you were before in some way. So tell me more about what was going on at that stage.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't even back to where I was before. It was back even further than I
Was it?
was ever been before. Looking back at some of those photographs, where people had to, stand either side of me just to get a visibility. I was covering so many people. I was, it's shocking. And when you look back at these photographs, you realize that the journey that you've been on. But yeah, I was just getting. I don't, and this is the scary part, I was, if I was to think of myself at the time, I wouldn't have called myself depressed. I wouldn't have called myself having an issue. But yeah, deep down, there was something in there that wasn't right, which kept me wanting to either eat more or do things from a comfort point of view. I was always looking for the comfort living. If it wasn't a large, I would look for the XL, and then it went to triple XL, I think, in terms of my size of clothes. But then somewhere along the lines, I suppose the roots that kind of guided me, the religion, my faith, my parents, and also, the people that are close around me, my wife, something connected, and I made another attempt to try and get back into the whole fitness thing, because just before this accident as well, I should note that I was freelancing work-wise, and I'd taken a break at that time. I was I couldn't do what I was trying to do at the time, and it was a summer period, 2017. I decided that there was not going to be that much work going on at the time, so. And then trying to get back into work was really difficult as well. So, when you take a break, you come back, it's much more harder than you think it was going to be. And I was getting, again, mentally and financially distressed as well, trying to think of how you're going to sustain a living. My youngest son is autistic, so my wife was looking after him, and it put a lot of strain on the family in terms of financially, as well as me being in control of my own self. And I thought the one way that I can be in control of myself was to take control, first of all, of my fitness. And I tried to do this. I took another step. I had a bike, which was in the garage for ages. I decided to take this out and try and ride that a bit more, and go to the gym a little bit more, do walks a bit more. And I was seeing some small progress. And yeah, that was, but it wasn't nothing, maybe it's your age thing. Maybe at 40s, trying to do something at the same time that you're doing in your 20s, you realize that your body doesn't respond in the same kind of way, and you get even more depressed because your mind still thinks, why isn't your body responding? And you just give up much more easier. So these were the kind of challenges that I was having at the time. Just being told that you, as I said, you're going to be living a life of a diabetic. Blood pressure was high, and all these other things that were coming up. So unless I was going to change, then I wasn't going to be around for much longer. But it felt very difficult for me to comprehend that message.
Yeah. I mean, from what you're saying there, I mean, I suppose in a way we deny that to ourselves. I mean, we can understand. So again, it comes back to looking at other reasons, like telling yourself, well, I'm not young anymore, or I'm older now, so it's going to be different. So in a sense, we're making excuses to ourselves as to why we can't move forward. We're looking at reasons why we can't, instead of actually what we can do, sort of thing. So tell me more, in terms of, like, you've explained where you were, how you felt, what you were, in terms of your physical health, your mental health, and so on at that stage. So about the incident, what happened?
I mean, the incident itself, it's still something that rings pretty big bells in my head now, and it's something that I hope it does continue to ring bells, because it reminds me how quick life can change. So there I was, pretty much, wallowing in my self-pity a lot of the time, just trying to think, how I'm going to live, how I'm going to survive, going from day to day, from a financial, from a mental, from a physical point of view. I had this bike. I literally went on a longer ride for the first time. And actually, no, just backtrack a little bit. Through this whole improving my mindset and trying to find this mental journey, I'd actually found my next role. So after a barren period of having some time off with the kids, the summer period, and then trying to find a new role, I'd found my next job role, which was due to start in a couple of weeks' time. And I realized that I'm not going to have this free time to do things that I want to do myself and go back into fitness and all the rest of it, because I'm going to be fully focused on this new role. So I got my bike out and started to go on it a little bit more. One fateful evening, what was it, September the 12th, 2017. It was just before sunset, about 7 o'clock, I think it was. Just riding to my local gym, and just literally just around the corner from my house, I was going downhill, realized I was going a little bit too fast, and tried to go on the pavement just to try and ride a little bit more safer. And as I was mounting the pavement, I clipped a drop curb, and that pushed the bike against rear the bike into a bush. The bush got hold of that bike, and as I was going downhill, I kind of flipped so that the bike stayed in the bush, and I went flying over the handlebars and basically landed face first into the pavement, and smashed my skull, the nose, the cheekbones, the teeth had all broken, and worse still was that the body had landed on top of my neck, and essentially had pushed the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth vertebrae into my spinal cord, which effectively rendered me paralyzed from the neck down. Although at the time I didn't realize any of that had happened. I could, as I was laying there, it was this big sudden thump. I could still recall that noise as I'm talking about it now. And then all of a sudden, my hands are kind of sprawled, and I was just laid on the pavement, and I could just see blood oozing out from the left corner of my eye. The right corner was just plastered into the pavement. It was just a horrific time, and I'm trying to think to myself afterwards, okay, get back up and get back on the bike, because that's what you do when you fall off a bike, you get back up and go. And then I realized I couldn't get up. I couldn't move, in fact, and I couldn't do anything at the time. And I'm in a suburban place, and there was hardly anybody around at that time of night as well. So then my mind quickly goes on to how am I going to move? I can't even get to the neighbor's door to call them or tell them, because I'm just sprawled on the pavement like this. And it was for those few moments in my life, I actually wondered what was going to happen. I thought that I could feel my breathing was slowing down a little bit, and I can come on to that a bit later, but from there the kind of miracles kind of happened. I mean, call it miracles, call it godsends, call it coincidence, but from the corner of my eye I see a lady walking up with her daughter, and I kind of try and shout out to her. I couldn't really shout because my mouth was still against the floor, but I think she could probably see me as a big mess on the floor there. So she came over with her daughter, and fortunately managed to, she happened to be there doing the right things, and managed to call up a local neighbor who was actually a nurse, who then knew exactly what to do.
Crazy.
And from the chances of all of that happening, because for me, and if it was me coming to see me, coming to see myself, I just remember begging and pleading her to move me off my neck, because that's the only thing I could feel, all my pressure on my neck. And I know you shouldn't move somebody in theory, once they've had such a bad accident, but in practice, that was I was begging and pleading her to just say, move me off my neck and just keep me rested. And then thankfully the fact that this lady who happened to come by afterwards was a nurse, she knew exactly what to do. She spotted the signs. Apparently, I told her that I had pins and needles going down my back, and she spotted that was a sense of being paralyzed. And yeah, she did what she had to do. Call the
So did they
doctors.
move you off your neck, or were you?
No, no, no.
No, she
She
didn't.
she
No.
she
Okay.
refused to move me,
Okay.
and she kept me there. She assured me. She called the ambulance. She raised it as a priority too, because she sees that I'm now passing out. I can't. I'm losing consciousness, and apparently the C3 and C4, the nerves that come off there. I had no idea of all of this beforehand, but those nerves that come off there control your diaphragm. So essentially what was happening was that my breathing was slowly but surely stopping because those nerves are now not powering the diaphragm. It was causing some issues there. So yeah, the fact that this particular person came up at that time, they said if it was another 10-15 minutes, I wouldn't be here basically now, because that was all stopping and my body was slowly but surely stopping to function. So thankfully she called, she knew exactly what needed to be done. Ambulance came across. They took me to Barnet, my local hospital. Barnet had one look at me and pretty much, facial injuries, skull injuries. Apparently my skull had broken in, so I was having blood leaking into the brain. So there's neurological damage that was happening, together with the spinal cord injury as well, which is amazing considering what a simple accident it was.
Were you conscious at this point of what was happening, or were you out of it?
Semi-conscious. I was coming in and out. I remember going into the ambulance and I could see thankfully I managed to recall my wife's number and I gave it to this nurse, and she called her, and the fact that we was just around the corner, my wife came running down and all that stuff. So she was in the ambulance as well. I remember her in tears, being incredibly strong, but talking to other people. And there was various parts I remember coming in and out of consciousness, but it was just again one of these situations that you realize, number one, you think you're in control, but I had no control of when I was passing in and passing out, coming in and passing out. Any of those moments that I was passing out, you realize that you probably may not be opening your eyes again, and that was really scary for myself. I mean, certainly looking back at it now, at the time you're not thinking too much about it, but yeah.
How about the pain? Did you feel a lot of? Well, I mean, obviously you're in pain, but were you aware of the pain, or were you? I don't know. You tell me what
I remember going into the ambulance. I mean, I don't know what they gave me at the scene of the thing, but I couldn't feel. I remember the ambulance that when they took me in, they asked me, "Can you put your arm up across your chest?" Because my arm was hanging off the stretcher.
Okay.
And I'm like, I can't feel my arm. I don't know what it is. I can't even feel what my arm was. And then all of a sudden, I could just see this, what felt or looked like a piece of meat, which was the arm, and it just comes across and it lands on my chest as somebody else is putting it on there. And I'm like wondering to myself, how comes I couldn't feel any of this? Because I still didn't realize what the severity of this injury was. And I thought to myself, it must just be a broken bone or something, because it's as bad as it gets for me in terms of when you're having a regular injury. So no, I mean, obviously everything from my neck down, I couldn't feel at all. And for my wife and for everybody else, I think they saw the severity in terms of the blood. I mean, it's only. So when I went to Barnet, they basically they said that, as I said, it was too complicated for them. They did a blue light, down to Royal London as a major trauma hospital. So, and that's where I was, and straight into their ICU. It was like a scene of casualty or something, where you're waiting there normally as an A&E patient, and all of a sudden a person comes rushing in and gets priority over everybody else. And at that point, I understand my neck was swelling and everything else was going wrong. My head was swelling. So yeah, but again, I had no clue of what was going on, and all I could see, all I remember seeing was the white ceilings of the ICU, and my family coming and just being in tears. And I'm still like wondering to myself, why are they so upset? You know, just falling off a bike, it can't be that bad. But it was like 2 or 3 days later that yeah, they basically told me, and they showed me, I think my sister showed me a picture of myself, and then I realized, wow, okay, this is the reason.
Well, what have your family said? I mean, obviously you've spoken to them since. I mean, about their, what did they relay to you? How what happened in terms of their experience? How they heard, what they felt, so on.
Yeah, I mean, obviously my wife was the main one who came, who was there first after afterwards all, and she relayed in terms of how I think I think for her point of view, she just went into adrenaline mode, and you know, she was thinking of the kids and trying to be strong, and you just go into that kind of mode of trying to protect and look after. So she was very practical, thankfully, and had a good head on her shoulders. And then, yeah, my mum and everyone else were just very, I mean, obviously the faith comes into it, and they were just talking about prayers. And when I look back at it now, yeah, on Facebook and everything else, they were just asking for prayers to make me better. And you then realize how much of a community around you, because yeah, this is like at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I remember, you know, when in those little moments that you're getting up, you're recovering from consciousness and not, yeah, the vague thing I remember was in ICU in Royal London, hearing about how many people of the family are still coming in to see me and wanting to see me, but they can't, obviously, because you don't allow visitors. But it was but again, such a weird moment, because I also remember at the time, you know, just thinking to myself, I've just fallen off a bike. Why are they coming to see me? You know, what's the big deal? But it's
funny when you think of it like that, but obviously it wasn't funny at the time. But you know, you know, I suppose in a way, it's ignorance is bliss. I suppose in your perspective. I mean, you didn't
100%.
know, you know, the severity of what was going on, and I suppose that helped you at that time. You know, not knowing how severe it was and the potential damage that you'd suffered and so on. You know, so in that situation, you're in hospital now, and tell me what happens from there. What's the next thing? I mean, obviously you've incurred these horrible injuries, and what goes from there?
I mean, the next thing I remember was a lot of talk and debate with the surgeons, with the consultants, about when's the best time to operate. My neck was swelling at the time, as I said, and obviously not many things can go on in your neck. And apparently, so what they're saying is that like your spinal cord is like the width of your little finger, and the third and the fourth vertebrae had gone in about 3/4 of the way through. Looking at the MRI scans that they'd taken, and you know that they were debating in terms of taking out this, reducing it, but trying to wait for the swelling to reduce. And that's all I was hearing at the time. And then they were debating between that and the head injuries as well, and which one should take precedence and all this kind of stuff. So I was literally a patient, I guess, in terms of what the discussions were, and just waiting for these surgeries. I mean, I couldn't even talk, I don't think, too much at the time. I couldn't offer any opinion because I was just totally out. I was, and then I remember the times that they actually did the surgery. I couldn't actually take any of the anesthetic as well, so I was half of the time, because they put the anesthetic down my throat, but my throat was swollen, so it was super difficult to get me drugged out to have the anesthetic as well, and all of this stuff.
Did you feel anything then? I mean, obviously you were paralyzed, but I mean, in terms of the actual from your head or whatever, did you feel any pain, or like, you know, during the procedure?
Yeah. I mean, they did the anesthetic. They managed to knock me out. Thankfully, it was a very difficult process, and I could feel the struggle that they were going through with all of that kind of stuff, because they weren't too sure how that was happening. But I mean, I just remember, I mean, from those times that and it is very surreal time when you realize that you close your eyes and you don't know, I was, not me, but my wife and mum or whatever, was signing forms stating that, that they were not going to accept any blame if, God forbid, the worst happens, because it was such a delicate surgery. You're pretty much signing your life away, in terms of filling out some of these forms. So, yeah, I mean, certainly for them. Thankfully for me, I don't know what it was, but I put it down to hopefully my faith, the fact that I was actually in a very good frame of mind considering what was going on. The fact that I was in what I felt was a very, the best hospital. That they'd moved me from my local hospital to this hospital. I felt much more secure. There was a lot more team talking and consultation and all the rest of it. So I felt in a very good, privileged environment. I was treated by the head of neurology there as well. A certain professor, and yeah, it was Jonathan Bull, and he was very reassuring to me. And I thought, if this is what these guys are dealing with, so they put me at ease very well. So huge thanks to the NHS and what we have for this, as a result of it. But but just like I said, the feeling that your life, how fragile your life is. As you know, a few hours ago before this, I was a family man, a man of three, and all the rest of it. And here now, my life was hanging in a balance, and you just take your life, you value your life that much more. And the fact that all of these operations, I felt that how easy it is to close my eyes and that's it. You don't know if you're going to open your eyes again, and that feeling was very powerful to me. I think coming back, looking back.
I mean, it does. It puts everything into perspective, doesn't it? And I think, this is something, a lot of people say after they've experienced something that's life changing. The things that we worry about on a day-to-day basis no longer seem relevant, and we focus so much time and energy on things that simply don't matter in the big scheme of things. And when you have an experience like yours, it does refocus you. And it brings you back to what the reality is and what really is important in your life. And so, in that situation, you just said you felt calm. I think you said to me before, you felt calm in that situation. Obviously it wasn't anything but a calm situation, but in your situation, because you felt you were in a good place, you were in the right sort of, the right people around you and so on, you felt more balanced in that sense. So as time went on and you had the operation and so on, what happened then? What changed?
I mean, just to come back on that point very quickly, I mean, the issue, I mean, it sounds kind of strange. How can you be calm in such an environment? But I think the idea was, and again, I put it down to number one, being in a very good surrounding and thankful for that surroundings that I was in, and number two, the fact of my faith, in terms of, because this happened in such a weird environment, such a strange environment. I'm, for those that know me, I'm quite an adrenaline type based person. I like my racing, my karting, and all these type of things. If it's something like that had happened, then fair play. Maybe I shouldn't have done such a thing, but for this, for such a simple thing to have happened, I thought there has to be a reason for this. God has a plan, and I put my faith in that plan, and basically this is the situation as it was. So, and it's easy to have good faith when things are going well. When you have your good family life, you have your pay, you have all of these kind of things, and you're thankful. Your faith is really tested when you're in these difficult situations, and do you still go back to your faith? And I'm really proud of myself for the fact that I managed to keep that part of me, and that's that spiritual side of me was the thing that kept me going, I think, in terms of my calmness in that situation. And again, the other thing, what you mentioned there in terms of the taking things for granted, yeah, because I remember in the days afterwards, that the recovery, and obviously it was a big struggle for my wife and my family to keep coming down to the hospital. We were living in Hertfordshire. Royal London in Whitechapel, central London, was really difficult, but they felt a duty and obligation to come down there. And I remember those conversations, how tired the family was to come and see me. And I'm like, one part of me was saying, I wish I could be in that environment. I wish I could be in that situation that you are tired to do this. Here I am now, kind of like lying in bed. I would, seize the opportunity to be able to travel from Hertfordshire to London and vice versa, or to be able to walk and do these type of things now. And this was a big eye opener for myself in terms of how we take routine life for granted. The fact that we've got a job, the fact that we've can walk and move and do things that regular people can do, but we still complain, we still think, and it's human life, and
it's normal.
Sometimes we need to have a bit of a shock. And there's such a surreal moment when I was hearing all of this and thinking to myself, wow, if only I could be given that opportunity, I'd seize that in an instant now, to be able to be the one who provides as opposed to the one who's receiving. So yeah, these were the days afterwards, the recovery. I mean, fast, a little bit, we had major, my head was pretty much, the face was peeled down. They had to cut open my skull and seal the internal parts of my head, and then put titanium plates. I've got titanium plates in my skull at the moment. I've got prosthetic vertebrae in my back, in my spine, that's put together with a clamp, and it's all screwed in there as well. So I've got titanium all the way down the spine as well, which is now in hindsight great for my kids, because they see me as like a Terminator or RoboCop, and the airport sensors do not go off when I go through. Enough times as well. But no, it's amazing. I mean, what the doctors, what the consultants, what the NHS, what comes nowadays, in such a finite time and space and everything else. I'm like, and I still am in awe of what the whole healthcare service is like. So yeah, it's
all power to them. I mean, they literally are lifesavers, as simple as that. I mean, but in terms of what you said there a minute ago, it's exactly true. Everything, having that faith. Now, it doesn't matter if you're religious or not. I mean, you can be spiritual, I think. But one of the things I found is that just knowing, is having a belief that everything is happening for the right reasons. Everything is heading in the right direction. There is some sort of higher power looking after us in some way. Now, however you define that is down to the individual. But knowing, trusting the process, just having faith that things are going to turn out the way they should, that helps you in that situation. It's helped me in the past to keep focused on what matters and what you can do to keep moving forward despite everything that seems to be going wrong around you. I mean, it can be whatever the situation is. In your situation, it was probably the worst possible situation you can imagine. But, just having that belief, that faith, that knowledge that, whatever's happening, it's right. It's going in the right direction. You're protected in some way. And that helped you remain focused, calm. And, in that situation when, anyone looking in, you'd think you'd be anything but that. You'd be completely distraught, going crazy or whatever, and that's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to have that sort of perspective, that mindset, to be able to look at it from that way. And it helped you, and it does help many people, especially when we're going through difficult times like we are now, to focus on what you can control and what you can do, and that just know that it's all happening for the right reason. So, I think that's a strong message that you put out there.
Yeah, 100%. I think that whole trust the process and
Mm.
keeping the overall goal in terms of seeing that trust, focusing on the things that you can change, focusing on things that you can control,
Yeah.
and letting the other things go in terms of, okay, this is not the case. So instantly from there, I was like, I still remember, not because I didn't know the severity of it. I was still on, speaking to my wife and telling my wife my main focus was on the job that I was now due to have next week. And then I was thinking to myself, okay, it's going to take an extra week or so
Right.
before I can get the job. But then being told afterwards that, yeah, you're paralyzed, and now that's it pretty much for your life. You're lucky. You're basically, the doctors came back and they said that, yeah, you're lucky that you can now breathe and eat unaided, because obviously with the neck being heavily swollen and all the rest of it, I couldn't breathe unaided, and I was being drip fed and all this kind of stuff. But they said, yeah, given the damage that's done to your spinal cord, you're probably not going to be able to move or walk again. It's going to be very limited. And they didn't say never, never, but the idea is that 3/4 of your spinal cord is pretty much now penetrated in with your previous the injury. It's a nervous system, and whatever recovery you're going to have is going to be within your first 2 years. That's where the majority of your recovery is going to happen. But they don't think that you'll be able to get to such a point where you'd be able to walk again. And from that point, I was thinking, para athlete and all these other type of things. My mind instantly went to, okay, so I can't do this. What can I do? And let's focus on those positives. And so it's that kind of mindset shift, which I didn't even realize I had. I was surprised. I mean, I'm probably, speak to anyone else, I'm probably one of the most laid back people around. But yeah, this was really, I was surprised at myself for the ability to process, and grateful to myself
Of course.
at the ability to process such information in such a pretty calm manner.
It speaks volumes about you as an individual. I mean, a lot of people wouldn't have done that. So it shows that you've got that, there's something in you that really is, it's natural and normal to focus on all that's wrong, but to be able to focus on what you can do it speaks volumes about you as an individual. That's something you should be proud of, definitely. Yeah. So when you found out that, I mean, you've just explained, I mean, like, had that good, strong mental approach. What happened between now and then? So, I mean, the process of, obviously you can move now. So what happened?
Yeah, so it was about 6 weeks or so after the actual accident itself, 5 6 weeks afterwards. Consistently, it's such a weird experience just to look at your body, and you've got the brain power, obviously, of an adult, but the body that just doesn't respond or doesn't react. You're literally like a living corpse. When you look at your limbs, you look at your limbs and you expect them to respond to your movement, and nothing's responding. To live like this was such a straight. I mean, it's hugely challenging. And don't get me wrong, there's, I talk about keeping positive, but there's many moments where the demons inside you get you. And, I'm looking at my kids coming up and they're in tears, and it was wondering to yourself as a father, what kind of life are you going to now have as a husband? As I've got my mother, my father passed away, so I've got a sister, so feeling that I'm like the provider, and yet everybody's now trying to give and come to me, a wider family, thankfully, who is looking to support me as well. So it was just a lot of lonely nights and days and all the rest of it, when the only thing that you have is basically three carers turning you from left to right on a bed, taking you on kind of like a hoist, trying to put you onto a chair. You're being hoisted up and doing these type of things. And and that's just the movement side. The fact that you can't go to the toilet, you can't do anything to this by yourself. Everything is you're left, all dignity is basically left at the door. You're just at the discretion of all these wonderful, carers and healthcare people that we have. But then thinking to myself, how is this going to be? Is this going to be now for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
42 at the time, and I'm like thinking to myself, this is certainly not nowhere near the part of the plans. So there was very dark times there. But as I said, 5-6 weeks down the line, I remember looking at my toes, one of the things, and all of a sudden I see the, on the left hand side, that the toes kind of flicker a little bit, and I'm like having to check myself again. It was that. It was like a little mirage or something. I was like thinking to myself, it was, did that really happen? Was it the wind? Was it something else? Did I actually make that connection to go through and stimulate the toes to move? And that for me was the moment that I would, the moment that I would save, I think, for the rest of my life. That first moment when I could see the toes move and
how did you feel in that moment? Do you remember?
Ecstatic. I was calling the nurses. This is like huge party piece for me.
I'm feeling ecstatic thinking about it.
I was, I mean, just the concept, and this is what I say, we take life for granted so much, but the thought process of, you've thought of something to make your toes move, and now your toes are moving, is like a hallelujah moment. Like when you've made a major breakthrough in terms of inventing some big thing that you've been kind of working on forever. Such a simple thing to all of us now. I can now move my fingers, I can move my hands, but
do you remember if you had a thought process that led to that, or did it just like happen out of the blue sort of thing?
It just happened. There's nothing. I mean, I remember trying all the time. I said, when the professors told me that, you're gonna have whatever recovery you're gonna have is gonna happen in this 2 years. That was the thing that was always ringing in my head.
Right.
But I didn't have nothing to grasp at that. I was still pretty much bedbound and couldn't do anything, and was being moved from left to right, and that was it. I was in ICU or HDU at the time, I think it was, that moved me across. But this little flicker was a little spark that I needed. It was a little thing that I needed to give me a little bit of belief, a little bit of hope, that something is actually potential, that there's potential there that can change. If I can move these little toes now, then maybe move a little bit more and see how that works and all the rest of it, and slowly but surely from there onwards, I was like a man possessed. It was and it was, when I say a man possessed, it's not like a training we were now doing many reps, but it was just the man possessed was trying to move a few more toes, or trying to move the foot a little bit. That for me was a huge achievement on a day by day kind of basis, to see what else I could do. And as that progressed, my left leg came back slowly, my right leg came back, and then my arms came back. And still the right arm is not as effective or fast as how it was before. That my right side, in fact, is still much weaker than my left side. But given where I was and what I was told and what my diagnosis was, I'll take it any day. And this is one of those things that you get, human nature, you get kind of frustrated about, because I was like looking at myself and thinking to myself, getting frustrated at the fact that, oh my God, I can't lift this leg or move this thing or whatever as much as I could before. But you then flick back to a few years ago, or you're told that you're not going to be able to walk again, and now you've progressed so far. It's
I suppose also when you balance it out, I mean, yes, you might have lost some elements of what you could have done before, but in other ways you've gained more, haven't you? You
Oh
know,
yeah,
there's a lot more you've
100%.
gained in terms of what you've lost. You know,
Um,
so I
I mean,
mean,
it's
it's
like what they say. I think when people, they lose their eyesight or they lose hearing or whatever, they lose
yeah,
some part of their physical side, that they gain something else. And
exactly.
yeah, for me, definitely mindset and mental strength has been a huge thing for myself in terms of what I've been able to gain. And I
Sure.
kind of like sometimes wish, I mean, if I was to fast forward all the way to now, thinking to myself of what I've been able to do since then, still with a pretty much broken body. It's still not as it was before then. You wonder if you had that healthy body, for all those people who haven't had any of these injuries or anything to put up with, how much potential we all have.
Exactly.
Being able to do all of these type of things
True.
with only 70-80% of what you originally had in the first place. So yeah, it's amazing.
No. And it's an eye opener, isn't it? Because like we've touched on at the beginning, so many of us healthy, fit, we've got so much in our lives that we should be happy for, our families, loved on, everything that we want in life, yet we still find reasons why we can't be happy and find reasons why we can't move forward. And it is human nature. We all do it. There's nothing wrong in that, because it's human to do that. But your situation particularly highlights, when you do go through something that's completely life-changing, it gives you might lose something which is valuable, but you do also gain something which is your mental strength and your mindset, and that's something you can't just buy. You have to go through these difficult circumstances, sadly, in life, to gain stuff like that, because you gain that wisdom and the knowledge about yourself. What am I capable of dealing with, and so on. And that's something I think you've learned as you've gone through all of this, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it's been a great big transformation.
Yeah, I think that the mindset situation has been huge. From where I was beforehand, where I was basically, like I said, putting the blame on other things, looking
Yeah,
at other people, thinking how great their lives are, and now trying to be that change myself. I've got the same capabilities as what other people have got. If you don't have the same capabilities, then get those capabilities.
yeah,
Try and learn, try and understand. Everything is out there. There's so many things that are out there available to us nowadays to get where we want to be.
exactly.
And we all have all these big dreams and goals, but trying to now get the plan in action to what is the plan to get to those dreams and goals. That's the key thing. And this, for me, I mean, I'm still definitely 100% work in progress. I'm not by any means saying that
I
I'm
think
the
we
finished
all are.
product.
Yeah.
But from where I was from a physical capacity to where I am now and what I'm able to do, I'm trying to now replicate that in other areas of my life. So from the
Yeah.
spiritual side of things, from the work and organization side of things, from the financial side of things, we've all got all these different kind of areas in our lives where we've got to improve. And uh, this physical part, which is the part that I'm in control of, I decide if I'm going to go out for a walk or move or do whatever. It's not in anybody else's sort of remit, and it's a discipline that has helped me and given me the belief that, well, if I can change this part of my life,
You can do
then
anything.
I can definitely apply that same mindset to other parts of my life and do it. It's
I
all
think
about
that's
having
great.
that belief.
It's a wonderful way of looking at it, because and it's often something we overlook, I think, because if you can achieve something massive in your life and inspire you and overcome an obstacle such as yours, and get healthy and fit and everything else again, then there's nothing to stop you doing anything. There literally isn't. And again, it's all in our mind. If we tell ourselves a limiting belief, or we create a fear-based belief or something that's in our mind, an assumption or whatever it may be, that stops us actually even approaching something, because we've already told ourselves we're not going to be able to do it, then we won't move forward. If we're looking outside and saying, well, I haven't got the money at the moment, I can't invest in that course or whatever, there's always ways you can move forward. And your resilience, your mindset demonstrates that, because you're in a situation where you could have easily just given in. You could have easily just said there's no point, but you didn't.
Yeah.
And you kept at it, and you kept going forward, and eventually you moved forward and you got through it.
I mean, yeah, I as I said, to this day, I still don't know where that resilience came from. Like I said, I'm probably one of the most people out there. So it surprised me, to be honest. But it just goes to show, you know, when your back's up against the wall, and
Yeah.
truly your back is up against the wall, where you don't have any other options. As I said, you know, you either come out fighting, or you curl up and die, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of the two options, and those are the two options that were pretty much presented. I realized that, you know, I could be looking out for family, friends, and all the rest of it to come and support me, but at the end of the day, everyone's got their own issues. They've all got their own problems. They don't really, hard to say. I mean, okay,
It's
care
true.
about
I
you.
know what you're going to say. Yeah, it's care, because
You
people
know,
do
care
know.
about you. That everything's limited. You know, that
Yeah,
everyone's got
right.
their own issues, and the only
Yeah.
person that was going to make a change in this was me. And you know, my question to myself was, what if? All the way, you know, what if I could do something? What if, and not having that end goal? You know, that there was always a next step, and
Yeah.
not settling for those, you know, being grateful, being humble, being honest to what was possible, but always trying to push a little bit further, because we don't realize, as I said, what's actually we're capable of.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
a lot of these people around that we are looking up and admiring have all started from a similar kind of base and position. You know, once upon a time, they had perhaps limited resources than what we have now. So it
You're
is that motivation, discipline, habit, consistency.
right.
Just keep on doing the same kind of thing day in, day out, and then you realize, you look back and think, wow, actually, you know, day in, day out, you don't see that much of a progress, but when you look back and you see, okay, wow, you know,
I think that's where the faith comes in as well, though, because, you know, especially like if you're focused on there's going to be lots of dark times, as you already touched on, you know. And I'm also thinking about my situation. I mean, people often say to me, "How did you get through it?" Well, there was no option. I had to keep going. You know, it was either what you said, curl up and die, or keep going. You had no choice. But if you're going through it day on, day out, many of those days are going to be very hard. They're going to be very difficult, very traumatic, difficult to move forward. But it's knowing that, keep going, the consistency, having the faith that one day things will change, keeps you motivated, keeps you keep going despite the difficulties that you're facing and the
definitely.
hardships that are coming your way.
And it was
You know.
celebrating all those little wins as well. You know, those
Yes.
little things that keep that you had as a win, and recognizing them and keeping them close to you, because those are your kind of checkpoints that you are doing something that is making a difference. You know, your mind is always playing tricks and games on you, in terms of, you know, go down the comfort route, go down the easy route, and why are we doing this? But you realize, once you've got a few of these wins up your belt after being uncomfortable, and you can see yourself, you're challenging yourself, is keeping those close to you that gives you that belief, putting in that extra work, putting in the extra discipline, and that was a thing that kind of like got me through, beyond where I was prior to the accident, definitely.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, you know, and it's like you know, little posts in the ground that we can relate back to, and we can say, well, look, I got to that point, and you know, I can move. Yeah, I think that's something we don't do enough of. You know,
Yeah.
celebrating our wins. You know, I know I'm guilty of that. I mean, you know, when we do have little set of wins, we should always take the time to note, you know, recognize that and celebrate that.
Yeah, celebrate it, and just keep it in your little goodie bag, you know, in
Yeah.
terms of when the times are hard, because these are the things that kind of get me, you know, when I'm now starting to do my running and things. You know, still to this day, running is the worst thing for me, in terms of something that I don't really enjoy, but it gets me, you know, the amount of dopamine you get afterwards, the amount of feel
Yeah.
good and accomplishment, because I don't enjoy it. But you feel that much more better as a result of doing it. You know, it takes me, I can say my wife, you know, family will see, it'll take me like, you know, a good 1 hour, 2 hours just looking at my trainers and procrastinating to get out for a half an hour run, kind of thing. You know, I would like think of everything against doing it and what needs to be done and all the rest of it. But the when you're doing these type of things, and this is where you've got to do it to have the to have your goodies in your bag. You can't just false tune your mind to think that you're going to achieve a marathon or achieve something that you're going to do without doing any of the hard work, the prep work beforehand. It's that those mental graphs, the hard work that you're doing all the time, the day ins, day outs, the regular routines that you're doing, and these are the type of things that have pulled me through in terms of where I am now.
So talk about where you are now, because for the people who don't know, I mean, this weekend I think you're doing 2 marathons. Is that correct, or is it? What are you doing this
double
weekend?
event? Yeah, no, it's a so yeah. I mean, and thanks for bringing this up. I mean,
just so people know, before we started the show, I said, "How are you feeling about the weekend?" And you said, "I don't know why I do it."
Yeah, no, these are great ideas to think about when you're sitting in the comfort of an office or a home and you've got a cup of tea and you think, these would be great things to do until you actually get out in the cold, freezing weather and start training again and doing things like this. But no, it is. I mean, so this is all part of trying to give back and help. When I always remember myself in this situation, and the amount of support that I needed. I was looking for inspirational stories. I was looking for other stories. I was looking, and there's the health side of me, then there's the financial, there's the daily practical side of me as well. I was supported so many different ways. I couldn't have got, talk about myself. It's not only me, it's a whole array of family, friends, community, workers, professional, the NHS, so many things that have come together to bring me where I am. It's like a village, as they say, that brings a person to where we are. And I've always, as a result of that, just wanted to give back in some way that I can. And these different charities that mean a lot to me. So with Wheel Power, who helped me to get out of my bed and into that whole kind of Paralympic way of thinking. They got me into a wheelchair and started to get me into sports and activity. Comic Relief, which I'm now working on at the moment. The charities that they've supported mean a lot. The mental health side of things, the homelessness. We were on the point of being evicted because we were, financially in a real dangerous position, and poverty. Obviously, a lot of people telling me, just rest, be okay, look after your health first. But then that message doesn't work to all the people that are wanting bills to be paid, and you've got 3 kids and you've got your wife and all the rest of it. These people, that story doesn't work when you're trying to support a family with the credit. So this side of things was really big. So these type of charities that have helped a lot in terms of what they're doing and how they're doing things. For myself personally, it's something that now I'm so fortunate and so honored to be able to be in a position where I can do something to give back. And like you say, this is now actually my 3rd year that I'm in a privileged position, and it is a privilege to be able to do something like this. When you're stuck in a hospital, you can't do anything. You really wish you can be the person who can provide. And I really want to, number one, raise awareness of all the good things that they do, and all of these charities, NHS charities, obviously did some big ultramarathon for them as well, raising money just to support their causes. And this weekend is at my local gym. We're doing a big body combatathon. So something done by Les Mills, for those who might know Group Fitness. This is one of the companies that got me into my whole rehabilitation post the hospital. Their group fitness activities and classes slowly got me from not being able to participate at all to slowly adaptive participation and all the rest of it, and then now actually training to become one of their instructors. So it's a huge story in terms of being
It's amazing.
paralyzed through to a disabled participant, and now looking to instruct other people to give them the same kind of belief and goodwill.
Yeah,
It's mental as well as a physical thing. So we're
of
getting
course.
them at my local leisure centre in Fursfield, a big class, again bringing the community together. This is the one thing that really means a lot to me. And then the following day, Sunday the 12th of March, we are arranging with my friend Lisa a Monopoly run. So again, it's a themed run where we join starting in at King's Cross Sunday morning and basically following the Monopoly board. But again, the idea is, I've done a lot of these runs, I've done a lot of these events myself, and I still will do because it's a lot to focus on me. But this type of event, the processes and how many people I can bring along with me, and with other people bringing along, it raises the awareness for other people as well, and hopefully brings a lot of community spirit and goodwill, is my thought process. So we've got 30-40 people for the body combat, we've got another 40 odd people for this, and the idea is to hopefully bring a sense of goodwill and gesture to everybody else and supporting a fantastic cause as well.
Have you ever thought of writing a book? Because I think that your story needs to be out there in book form somewhere. I just think you inspire so many people just by talking about it and doing what you're doing. But so even if you're doing the work with the NHS and the community and so on, I think just by hearing your story, you cannot fail to be inspired. Like I said to you at the start, so many of us focus outward on things that restrict us in life, but then when we look at situations like yourselves, your story, it makes us reflect more upon what we're capable of and what we can do, and that inspires people. So,
no, thank you. I mean, to be honest, it's been asked a few times in terms of what the situation would be to write a book, but I've got to also remind myself that you're a family person, trying to juggle all of this as my family also
it's a lot,
as well. It's a lot. You got a professional job that I'm very grateful for having as well. In this day and age, trying to support that together with mixing it with the family. We've got 3 boys. 2 just about to go into university, 1 just about to go to secondary school. Family life there is pretty intense, and all of this charity things is my own personal feel good and fitness as well. There's a lot of things going on, but I definitely the coming back full circle now, coming back to the start. It's that whole what the purpose of all of this has been. I mean, I didn't certainly set out to go out and inspire or to help other people. I was, as I said, 2017 in September, I was just trying to lose a bit of weight and trying to be there for my family. But as a result of all what's happening and keeping my head down, as a result after all this accident, and then, as I said, being told that you're not going to walk again, and then suddenly being able to walk, going through all of this to now being able to give something back, not only make a full recovery pretty much yourself, but also now give back to others. I really do want to, and that's the purpose of trying to join these podcasts and do other things. It is to try and help and support, because we all going through our challenges. I'm not saying that this challenge of mine is different to other people's, but it is different in different ways. But everyone has their own challenge, and it's just trying to make be the best version of ourselves that we can be. And when I was in that position, I was looking out for stories to help me, and hopefully, as the cliche goes, if it can help one person, then I'm there to support, and I'm your biggest fan, basically. So I really want to push people in terms of, after being in that position of being very comfortable living, and that's fine for some people, but as I said, there's so much more that we all have to offer in this world. I wasn't put on this world, I realize now, just to be obese and live a day-to-day life and then die. This was all training for me. God's put me on here to go through these challenges, find this better route, and hopefully be able to help other people in the process. So my story is definitely one that I want to, if it helps spread and help other people, then we'll find a way.
No, I think you're certainly going to do that. And again, I think we don't, when you've been through like hell and back and then some, as you're doing the then some now, you don't realize, you don't actually realize how many people you do help without, it's not necessarily the bigger picture. It could be in small ways, but
no, definitely. I mean, I hear so many. I mean, sometimes you wonder myself, when I'm trying to put these things out, does it really help? Are people connecting? Can it? But then when you come offline, sometimes it doesn't help in a obvious perspective. People are not always shouting out. But then when I meet them and when I hear afterwards that, how people are putting on their shoes again and going out for walks and runs after having excuses before, but then realizing here's me who has now, I couldn't move 5 years ago, and now I've just completed an ultra marathon last year. I've done the London Marathon last year as the year before for Willpower, and we've got a whole lot of challenges as well lined up for this year too. So it's always not having that final goal, but it's pushing yourself, asking what if, seeing what you're capable of doing. And it's not only the physical side, it's the mental unlocking that you get as a result of this as well. It unlocks so many parts of your brain that you did not think that you could do beforehand. And for them to then hear stories that it's inspired them to put their shoes on and start doing running again or doing something again and being active, it means a whole lot to myself personally. I
think as a society we don't put enough emphasis on the mental power that we have. We tend to overlook that to some extent. I mean, and if we were to focus more on the things that we can do in life and how we can create the emotions, the actions that we want to be experiencing, rather than feeling the things that we don't and doing the things that we don't, then we'd all be a lot happier generally as a society, I feel. And people like yourself.
I mean, it's look, exactly like what you said. It's what we can do. I couldn't run for a period of time because I'd inflamed my hip and done all these other things as a result of the running. I had to take a back seat, but then I could have quite easily stopped and gone down a different route. I flipped my training around and see what I could do. I could do a bit of cycling. I did other bits of cardio. I did other bits of weight training. I focused. When I couldn't move, when I was paralyzed, I flipped again and focused on my nutrition, and was really then looking into nutrition and ways of living while I was in that hospital bed. I remember because I was conscious that I didn't want to neglect. I was just starting as usual to get a bit of momentum going on my fitness journey, and then I became paralyzed, and I didn't want to revert back. And so it's always thinking and being adaptive and being positive in terms of what we can do. There's so many, as I said, opportunities and things that we can focus on, and this is all about, as I said, being the best version of what we are, given the resources that we have available.
Exactly. And if you're focused on a problem, you're never going to see an opportunity. Simple as that. And it's normal, it's human nature for us to do so. We all do it, but when we're aware enough of the fact that we are doing it, we can change it. We can change the way we're thinking so that we're actually able to see solutions and different possibilities. And when you do that, things change.
Yeah, it's what they say, isn't it? It's where your focus goes, your energy flows, and that will, for me, has always been the case. You focus on the solutions, you focus on what you can do, as opposed to the things that you can't do. It's really difficult. Don't get me wrong. This is the discipline, and the discipline is a muscle in itself. You've got to keep on working. For myself on this as well, as I said, I'm work in progress. I'm by no means got this right. I've still got my dark days, and I still can see myself slipping if I don't keep on with this, and people see this in terms of, that they a lot of people, they see just the end result, the fact that you can now do these runs and marathons. They don't see, apart from people in the gym, I guess, the fact that you're going into the gym 6 days, you're doing runs in the
Hard
morning, you're
work.
doing other things there. It's all of that. That's part of my rehab. That's still ongoing. And these are the kind of things that you just got to keep on going, keep on grinding.
It comes down to the consistency, doesn't it? Which you said before, when you were going through your recovery, it's the same
Yeah,
mindset.
it's. I mean, I remember like what you said beforehand with regards how I was training before. When I was getting married, I had a particular goal and I was training for that,
That's
and
right. Yeah.
that was it. Whereas now it's that whole concept of the training is part of your life.
Yes.
It's fitting it in as you would brush your teeth before you go out, as you would get changed. You train, and it becomes an integral part of your life. It's not an add-on to whatever else. You make it part of your lifestyle,
Part of you.
and that's definitely part of me. And it's the mental side of it as well as the physical side. It's not all about. And this is one of the big shifts, I think, from what I had beforehand, when pre-accident, if you like, and just after the wedding, when I was thinking to myself of serving my family, and then feeling guilty for looking after myself. It was a case of, now it's a case of, you look after yourself so that you can help your family, so that you can. I go through all of this training indirectly for the family and for the people around me, so that I can present the best version of myself to these people. So it's a very subtle but a very distinct mindset shift. That I know that I've got to have my 1 hour, workout, and it's 1 hour of 24 hours,
Does make
right?
a difference, doesn't it?
Not major, but you've got to have that time to yourself, and that time is actually to be able to be in a better position to serve others. Because I realized the times that I didn't have it, you've not only missed out on that, you still haven't caught up on doing other things, and you're still thinking about the fact that you haven't had you're not in your best possible shape or your best
I totally agree with that.
feeling. So this is a big change, I think, for myself. It's, as I said, a very subtle one, but a very big one in terms of trying to look after myself. And as they say, you can't pour from an empty kettle, kind of thing. You've got to be able to have the energy and the strength to be able to serve other people.
Yeah, funny enough you said that, because I was talking to a client literally only last night about the same thing. And I think a lot of the time, and if you're busy and you're working and you've got other things in your life, you can tell yourself, I haven't got time to do this. I haven't got time to go to the gym or exercise, because we create a belief that tells ourselves that, I need an hour and a half, or I need 2 hours, or whatever it is in that gym. And if I've only got half an hour, there's no point me going. And we discussed that. And one of the things, even if you're going for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or 20 minutes, you're putting yourself forward. And that mental shift alone, just going, just being there, just doing something, makes a huge difference to your overall well-being.
Exactly. And that's exactly right. That 10-15 minutes workout compared to not doing nothing at all. And even for me, when I'm traveling as well, going to hotels, just doing even a few press ups, a few sit ups in the hotel room, doing those type of little things, you just feel that much more better. And you've ticked the box in terms of done something for yourself as well, in terms of making yourself feel good. So it's all of these little things that make a big difference. And it doesn't have to be a heroic effort. As I said, it's just the consistency of doing something little every day that makes a big difference.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah, no, your story is amazing, Ray. I mean, it really is. And, all power to you, because you've been on some journey and you're still on the journey. And like you said, we're always a work in progress. We're never the finished product, but we keep moving forward. We keep, improving and getting better, and helping others in the process as well. So, thank you for that, for doing what you're doing. You're helping so many different people.
Thank you, Marc, for the opportunity to share. And it's all about moving forward. If we don't move forward, we die, pretty much. This is the situation, and any opportunity, as I said, to give back, it's a blessing. And I think that's the biggest thing that I take, from all of this. It's the gratitude, the blessings that we all have. We've got so much to be grateful for. And when you're in that position, when it's like I was telling you before. I think it's, like it was just coming out of Christmas now, but yeah, it was Scrooge. When you hear the story of Scrooge and you get presented a life where you just do not have any of this. I was in that life where I couldn't have any of these opportunities, and now you come back into this life as a 2.0, and yeah, you want to seize everything that you've got available to you now. And this is, if I can get that message to other people without going through what I've gone through, then that would be the biggest thing. There's so much out there and so much potential we all have to give. So go out there and get it.
Great message. So thank you so much for coming on my first show. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on there. And for anybody listening, I'm available for one-to-one coaching. I help people create a mindset that works for them consistently in their life. And so if anybody is interested in finding out more about what Rae and I have been discussing tonight in terms of the mindset, please do get in touch. And, alternatively, if you've got a story as well, which is, where you've been to hell and back and then some, and you're looking to share that story and inspire other people, then also please get in touch, because I'd love to have you on the show as well. And I'd like to end tonight by giving Rae the final word. Is there anything you'd like to say before we go?
No, well, just to thank you and thank the audience for listening. It's been an amazing journey so far, but it's still ongoing, God willing. And yeah, it's just keep grinding, keep going out there, keep doing your thing, and as I said, don't forget to give back to all those other people who have helped you along the journey as well. Just be mindful.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And if you've enjoyed this show tonight, please subscribe, share, like, comment, because it helps my channel grow and more people get to see it as well. So if you can do that, that'd be great. And that's that for tonight. I'll be back next month with another guest, with another inspiring and amazing story. So if you can tune in for that, that'd be wonderful. And in the meantime, have a wonderful month. See you soon. Bye. Thank you, Rae.
Thank you.
Right, send that.